Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're talking Love is Blind Season 6, Episode 2, specifically about this toxic love triangle between Matthew, Clay, and AD. And while I do plan on making another video about Matthew in this episode because the manipulation doesn't get any better with him.
That's not true.
In this video, I wanted to focus on AD's other love interest, Clay, and why I think he might be the Kryptonite to Matthew's Superman.
Superman had a cold personality to start off too.
We last left off with AD at the end of the first episode, where she just discovered that Matthew, her allegedly love-bombing, manipulating love interest, who showered her with affection about how much he cares about her and how amazing and perfect their connection is, and he's gonna leave with her, and he wants to marry her, and all this stuff, she just found out is total lies.
And Matthew's so fucking good, like at talking you into a loop.
That's not true.
This whole revelation was, understandably, incredibly shocking and likely quite damaging to AD, as she now questions, I don't trust men at all, what is going on with these people, people are lying to me, I can't trust anybody.
What the actual fuck is wrong with men?
Her world is pretty shook right now, but the show goes on, and now she has another date, this time with her other love interest, Clay, whom she tried confiding in about this whole Matthew situation, and yeah, it didn't go very well.
Are you not feeling me or you are? Because what you just told me has nothing to do with me.
But before I get to the fights, who is Clay? Clay is kind of a player. He's charismatic, he's a smooth talker.
Welcome, ladies. This is Smooth 107.1 coming to you on a smooth line of Love is Blind.
All the girls on the show that have been on a date with Clay seem to all agree, at least in the edits that we've seen, he's a player.
Baller, life of the party, loudest one, athlete.
He said he was really loathing turning 30 and wanted to hang on to 29 forever because he hates the idea of getting older.
I just don't want to age, you know?
And he's contemplating the idea of getting a cat, and likes cats because you don't have to show them a lot of love and affection.
I like the fact that cats, you don't need to show them love all the time, you know?
Which, hey, fair enough. Maybe that's a better suit to you as a pet owner than a dog who might want some more socializing, but that's a weird thing to say on a dating show. Even if that was true, I feel like if I was on a show like that and I'm meeting some, Love is Blind, I probably wouldn't mention that I'm into things that I don't have to show a lot of love and affection to. You know what I mean? I wouldn't recommend people share that early on. But then he says he thinks he's been there, done that with women, and he thinks he's at a point in his life where he wants to settle down and have something more serious.
I think I'm ready for that next stage of like settling down.
And in a nice gesture of vulnerability, shares with AD that he's been feeling pretty insecure about this whole Love is Blind thing. And shares that he's scared that people won't like him for just him for who he is and his personality.
You know, AD, I was actually doubting myself. I'm like, man, who's gonna love my personality?
Stop.
And even really appreciates that AD has been so vocal in saying that she likes him.
Your words of affirmation has been very helpful for me because I was actually kind of doubting myself through this process, you know?
He says he's insecure, but really appreciates her words of affirmation and how that really helps him out, which is a pretty great thing to say. If he's being truthful and not doing that to manipulate AD like Matthew seemed to. Remember, Matthew also played a bit of a sob story and talked about how emotions were hard for him and how this is all very difficult and how he feels so safe with AD. And although on the surface, to some people it could kind of seem like Clay could be doing something similar, he acts like a player and even says later that he was a player and he is good with girls, but then plays this softer role around AD and says he's insecure about things and is working on it and really appreciates that AD is trying to be comforting. It sounds similar, but the vibe I get from Matthew is a lot more calculated and purposeful. And when I hear Clay talk about this, again, I don't know, he still could be a manipulator. It feels to me like this is a bit more genuine from Clay and that he really does appreciate and is aware of his insecurities. And keep those similarities between Clay and Matthew in mind because we're gonna see a lot more of them. But things go well between Clay and AD for quite a few of their dates, until this date happened in the first episode. Clay's opening up about himself and his values, how he looks up to his father as a role model, and then, in a way that really perked up my ears, starts talking about how massive his ego is.
My ego is very huge,
Which sounds pretty weird at first, and actually, every time you hear it, it sounds pretty weird. But then goes on to describe that massive ego of his is really more like a character he's developed over time as a coping mechanism to his insecurities.
It's like a little bit of a security blanket.
He says he's learned to be a smooth talker and very suave, and he's successful with girls and is able to get a lot of girls that are susceptible to that. But he discovers that it's that same ego that might have been preventing him from developing more serious, real relationships with the people that he really wanted to be with.
I guess maybe the way I come off, maybe I don't provide that sense of security emotionally.
And when I saw this scene, even though it's edited, I was pretty impressed with Clay. Because what he's describing is absolutely right. It's like if I show up to the high school dance and I'm real insecure, I don't really feel comfortable being myself or authentic or, any of that crap. So instead of just being myself and dancing to the beat of my own drum, I fake it. I pretend. I act like someone I'm not. I pretend to have the interests that other people have and do the things that people want me to do to fit in or be cool. And maybe that works a little bit for people, at least on a surface level, but then you go and you see the girl. That girl that's just being herself, and she actually seems to like the same stuff that you would really like, and you might actually have a great connection. But she only sees your stupid character you're playing. This dumb, I'm so cool, popular guy. She's not gonna like that. So yeah, you may have figured out a way to develop lots of shallow relationships because you're afraid of being yourself, but then you don't get the few really good, genuine quality relationships that you really want. Playing a character to fake your way through social interactions and make people like you without being a genuine reflection of who you are deep down? Who does that remind me of? See what I mean with the similarities? So it seems like although Clay has a history of this ego thing and the fake kind of way of relating to people, that he's at least aware that he was like that and that might be a problem.
I really appreciate the fact that you came and told me like, yo, Clay, like, I want to get to know you better. Like, that's really validation for me that I need to hear because I don't hear that often. And
again, we see Clay thank AD specifically for her words of affirmation and saying, I was real insecure. I can't rely on these things. I just might talking. So that's why it's so great that you validate me and say that you like me and that this is good. This is good for me. This helps me. And before we go on, let's compare that again with Matthew. Because again, Matthew also had a sob story, but his way of communicating to AD that they were a match made in heaven was to love bomb. He just said again and again, I feel so comfortable with you, you're so caring, we have such a great connection. It was vague, and it was kind of a panacea solution. Just you existing, we have such an electric connection that you just have to exist and be yourself. And now I feel amazing about myself. That really speaks to how amazing our connection is. The focus is a bit more on the luck and the bond that they have, that they were just perfect together. Whereas Clay is much more specific. He says he has this general problem, this is the thing he's insecure about, that his character and his words and personality is not good enough, and really appreciates specifically that AD gives words of affirmation to make him feel better. Clay's version may be a lot less magical and fairy tale sounding, but that's why I think it's more authentic and healthy, and less likely to be used in a way to manipulate someone. So really good stuff from Clay right now, and I'm pretty impressed. And then Clay says all this?
I just feel like my worst fear is like we do the reveal and it's like, oh wow, we never really talked about physical, and like I just have to be attracted to you. Naturally, I would say I kind of lean towards more like petite. My favorite attribute is like lips, butt, and all that stuff.
What, dude? You're gonna go on Love is Blind and have a great connection with someone and then drop it like that?
Regardless of the emotional connection.
Regardless of the emotional connection,
Listen, I get what he's saying. Attraction is important. The studies have been done. It's important to be attracted to your partner, that there's an element of that. But for one, you're on Love is Blind, so you've kind of said that, we're all gonna be unsure about that, but we're gonna YOLO it and see where it goes. But more importantly, there are so many other ways you could have said that didn't make you look more like a playing asshole. Clay, you were doing so well with the vulnerability thing. You were doing so great about telling us how you were afraid of stuff. You could have kept going. He said he was scared about making a connection and then finding out that they're incredibly unattractive to him. He voiced that fear. You could have just stopped there. You didn't have to go on and list all these things that you like and how imperative it was that you be attracted to her. Not that this is a big scary thing and attraction is important, and I hope that we'll be okay with that. Not a mutual us thing. To even just say that phrase, even out of context, I just need to be attracted to you. Don't you have a sense on the inside that that's not something you should say out loud to somebody? Doesn't that just sound judgmental and distant and just kind of icky?
That sounds like so shallow and all that, but like caring what your best attributes are. If I'm gonna propose, that's something I need to know.
I'm guessing in this moment, maybe he just totally slipped and didn't realize how he came off in this situation. That could be an explanation. I also think that it could be that for him, maybe he's not used to this level of emotional vulnerability and intimacy in the relationship, and he was just previously being open about his feelings and getting support. But now, after all that, he's reached some kind of threshold where it's, okay, too much vulnerability, too much connection, like, okay, I gotta take a step back. And his way of taking a step back is to kind of self-sabotage a little bit, or to put back on the player mask and overemphasize and overvalue what he's used to valuing. I don't know, that's how it felt like to me. I don't know why he'd be doing so well and then say something that seems to put such a foot in his mouth, especially after how well things are going. But anyway, AD doesn't like that and is now scared a little bit of this side of Clay. Maybe he's not this grown-up, ready to settle down kind of person that he presented himself to be. Maybe he is a bit more of a player and tells him like, hey, this is Love is Blind.
I personally don't want to sell myself based off like my physical attribute. That to me defeats the purpose.
Even if AD would have been attractive to Clay, she doesn't want to introduce that element into their connection. She wants to know that if she's being accepted and loved and chosen, then it has nothing to do with her looks. It's entirely based off her character on the inside, which I think is admirable.
Clay is extremely hung up on appearance, and it does bother me because I have so much more to offer.
So Clay and AD's date ends. She then goes on a date with Matthew, which we talked about last episode. That's the love bombing one where it just got real bad real quick. Go watch that video, by the way, if you haven't watched it. I think statistically, basically, unless the video does amazingly, everyone who watches this video probably saw that last video because that video is doing a lot better than a lot of my other videos. So thank you for that. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. But now we're done with episode 1 and we have caught back up to where I was going with in the beginning of this video, where if you remember, AD is going on a date with Clay. She just had her terrible experience of learning that Matthew was a liar, that she got played, that this guy is full of shit. And now she's having a date with Clay, whom she wants to try to vent a little bit or to bring up to him. So episode 2, Clay and AD, and the date starts right off the bat. Clay apologizes for how he acted last episode.
Now I want to apologize. We are here to build that emotional part to see, hey, can we even last on that level? So I'm sorry.
He walks in, says he's sorry, and recognizes that this is Love is Blind. The point is to build an emotional connection and not think about that stuff, and he just got a bit ahead of himself.
This persona that I am in, I really manifested this. I was a nerd earlier, you know, so.
And then talks again about this ego developed, which it was cut where he apologized and then immediately started talking about his ego. It was cut, so we can't assume that he immediately started talking about that, but the inference that I got was that yes, one of the reasons he reacted in that way and kind of regressed and talked about bodies and tits and ass or lips and ass or whatever it is because that could have been a slip into his ego thing, and he's like, okay, I gotta stop that. I gotta go back to try to be yourself, Clay. Try to be authentic and vulnerable, and that's when he's like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So again, good on Clay. AD is happy to hear this and shares with Clay some of the worries that she's had about the relationship thus far. Namely, that AD has a type.
Clay feels like home, but then also, let me give you the real, Clay sounds like every man that I would go for.
Yeah.
So.
As we talked about in my last Matthew video, AD clearly says she goes for red flags, she goes for players that will treat her poorly.
If I see a red flag, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just paint my nails red to match.
And as she describes, she's such a
fix-a-hoe
that she will go into a relationship with a work in progress kind of person and say, okay, well, I know you got all these red flags and you're not a good person, but just practice being better on me.
That I would be like, it's okay, practice on me.
So yeah, with a type that's that clear for her, I think we could all understand then why she would naturally be into Clay, another player with some red flags. But as she tells Clay, the reason she's feeling a bit better about their relationship is, yeah, maybe you used to be a player and you have those tendencies that's familiar to me and you feel like the other bad players that I've dated in the past. The difference with you, Clay, is that you seem to be on a path of recovery and you have some amount of awareness about that. So although there's a cycle there that I'm aware that I'm dating in the same pattern with you, Clay, I'm telling you that I feel better about this because I don't think that pattern will stay that way. I think that you're on the road to recovery, and although you're familiar in a way that I'm attracted to, but I don't think is like super good for me, I think that I can relax a bit with that because I don't think you're actually gonna be like those other guys. You just remind me of them right now. And I gotta say, I agree with her. Anytime you realize you have a type that maybe hasn't treated you the best, maybe you realize you have a type, but this type obviously hasn't worked out for you thus far. If you think that describes you at all, then I would advise you to be highly critical and really take your time the next time you suddenly become attracted to a new person. Because we don't like to believe that we're attracted to them for a good reason because we're compatible, but if you have a history, just because you're feeling a rush of positive emotion and love, or what you're interpreting as love at least, doesn't mean that that's a green flag. It could just be that you're in that cycle. So I'm glad that AD can recognize that she has a pattern and that this might be different. Okay, no more nice, cute stuff. The fight's happening now, okay? Ring the alarms, everybody. The fight is starting now. Because after Clay apologizes and the two of them figure it out, AD sighs and goes, man, that's good. But man, that's a real emotional day today.
What an emotional roller coaster.
And Clay naturally asks, oh, what was so emotional about today?
Why?
And then AD explains herself in not the best way. Of course, this is all edited, but it seems like she started off the conversation by saying, I formed a connection with someone else.
I formed a connection with someone else. And in that process, he had formed a connection with someone else.
Which, if I'm Clay, I get, but I probably don't want to hear that. Especially after we were just being vulnerable and we got to a good place. Then to immediately hear, oh, I had a bad day because I'm also having a great connection with this other guy. And he had a thing with someone else and it became complicated. If I'm Clay, I'm hearing that, so I'm like, ouch. I was just vulnerable with you. We just had a good moment. And now I'm being reminded that this is a TV show, Love is Blind, and you're dating other people. Like, that's a good way to raise the walls real quick. Clay hears this and clearly gets dejected almost immediately. He's got his head in his hands and he jumps up and starts walking around the room and pacing. I'm guessing triggered right now, just waiting for her to finish talking. While AD continues to describe the situation, but not in a way that I think is the most sensitive to someone in Clay's position. Because she says she built a strong connection with someone else, and then tells Clay that this connection was so serious that she was telling this guy, Matthew, about how her father passed away, and that conversation was related to this guy, Matthew, asking her hand in marriage.
My father just passed away. He was like, oh, if I do propose to you, like, I would want to ask for his hand.
And only then says, yeah, so when another girl came up to me and said that that guy, Matthew, also asked about the dad and the hand in marriage thing, then it really threw me through a loop.
The fact that I thought I had a conversation that was like personal and intimate and it was not kind of fucked me up. You want the proposal at the end of the day, then just leave right now.
And then Clay, who's still pacing around this room this whole time, still clearly upset, not that AD knows that, takes a breath and then says this.
Are you not feeling me or you are? Because what you just told me has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, so he's mad and even asks, who is this other guy? Who's this love triangle? And when AD tells him that the other guy in this love triangle is Matthew, Clay's reaction is very telling.
Matthew? Oh my fucking God. You're gonna regret that shit. I'm telling you, AD.
Yeah, could you imagine that from Clay's position? I mean, finding out you're in a love triangle, yeah, not gonna feel the best. Not happy about that, but you'd at least hope that it's someone that you think is like, oh yeah, well I guess they're kind of a cool guy, you know, maybe we're kind of similar, like I could understand that. But then hearing it's the guy that no one talks to, that no one likes, and it's like, that's the guy? That wacko dude? That's who I'm competing with? If you think you're in a love triangle between you and a psycho, in your perspective, allegedly, what does that say about me? What's going on here? Regardless, Clay is upset and takes it out a bit on AD. Says, have I not done enough? Do you like me or do you not? Have I not done everything right? And
I don't understand, am I not saying the right things to you? We not having the right conversations?
kind of talks in a way, I wouldn't recommend that. I get that he's triggered and upset right now, but that's a very blamey kind of way of thinking about it. He kind of goes straight to, am I not good enough comparison, which isn't really the point. Have I not done everything right? Have I not said all the right things? There's also kind of an entitlement there. Like he thinks he's earned a certain relationship with AD, and now that that idea is being threatened, he feels like he is lost what he's entitled to. It wasn't the best look for Clay, if I'm honest. But although in this moment, I think Clay is the one who lost his cool more than AD. And I'm not saying this is AD's fault, but I do think she could have worded that in a much better way. Because yes, this is Love is Blind, this is a dating show. We all know in our minds that you're likely dating other people. We can all know that. But I don't think anyone wants to feel like the person they're dating and they're interested with is using them as a way to vent about a person that person is dating. Does that make sense? If I was interested in a girl and I'm trying to develop a relationship with them, I don't want to hear about their boy problems with other guys. I can understand and respect that it's there, and maybe in this point we're not committed, you're allowed to date other people, that's fine, but I don't need you to come tell me about how this other guy hurt your feelings. I don't think it's all or nothing. If she were to just say, oh, I had a bad day, I had some bad dates today with other guys, then Clay maybe goes, oh yeah, I did not like being reminded that you went on dates with other guys, but I get it. That sucks. Sorry you had some bad dates. Though that might be okay. Or not focusing on the amazing connection you had with Matthew and instead focusing on the fact that he's an amazing liar and psycho. Being like, yo, Clay, you're not gonna believe this. I had this date, sorry about that, there's another connection, but then I said all this stuff and then he was just lying like, dude, what's this Matthew? And then he could be like, oh my God, Matthew? Yeah, dude, he is weird. And then it could actually be kind of a bonding moment. But to say I developed a serious connection with someone else and we talked about family members of mine passing and we talked about possibly getting married and how this guy might propose to you and all that stuff. Like, okay, I didn't realize that you had such an amazing connection with someone else. Like, fine, go be with them. I understand the response. That was a little too much information to divulge, and I don't understand if that's crossed a boundary for Clay, who may be like, yeah, I'm here for you, but that was too much. That's an overstep. Like, whoa, okay, why are you telling me all this stuff?
Are you not feeling me or you are? Because what you just told me has nothing to do with me.
Doesn't excuse Clay losing his cool like that. I still think that he could have had more control in that situation and communicated more directly and not lose it. But I think AD also could have had more control in that situation and said, yes, I feel pretty bad and I want to share my emotions with this person that, I'm developing a relationship with them. I want them to comfort me and I want us to talk about our emotions. As she says, can't I have a moment?
What? Am I not allowed to contemplate? Am I not allowed to have a moment?
Yes, you can have your moments, but you still need to be respectful of not overdoing it there. You don't need to dump all that stuff in that situation. Anyway, it wasn't a good look for either of them, in my opinion. And they butt heads for a while after that and just kind of complaining, well, why didn't you? Well, I just felt like that, they do some of that. And then Clay tries to break through the little fights they have and tries to be vulnerable, but says it in a very interesting way.
It's like my ego is like fucking with me so hard, but I'm really trying to be very understanding and work with you on this.
Can you not keep talking about your ego like this? Which I think is his way of saying, hey, I'm really conflicted right now. I'm triggered, essentially. I'm upset and I have a reaction to act in this bad way, but I'm really battling right now and I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to work with you on this. And then, with what looks like a lot of mental energy and focus, tells AD how he feels and tries to make a request.
It doesn't make me feel good, so if you care, I really need you to think about this. Hopefully I see you tomorrow and we could talk about it. If not, I get it.
His tone of voice sounds like he's mad and still critical, so I understand if AD may not hear it this way, but it sounded to me like he was trying to say, listen, I just feel bad, but we're on the same team. I hope we can figure this out, which is an olive branch. AD, still a little exasperated by this whole situation, then asks, well, what do you want? Do you want an apology?
I don't know what you want me to say. Are you looking for an apology?
No, I'm not.
And then Clay says, no, you don't have to apologize. Here is specifically what I want you to say to me that would make me feel better. This specific request.
What are you looking for?
I don't know, maybe you telling me that you care and you will want to see me tomorrow. I don't know, some type of reassurance, like.
He did it. Look at that. I gotta give it up for Clay. He's mad, he's triggered, he's upset, and then he takes a minute, sits down and says, you don't need to apologize. I just feel insecure. I would like you to tell me that we're together. I would like some kind of reassurance. That's all I need. It's so great. It's so great to see. That's so direct and functional, just awesome. But as these things happen, although Clay was pretty calm and direct in that request, AD herself is still a little upset. She's still frazzled, so she doesn't really hear exactly what AD said and how functional it was. She reacts and goes, well, of course I care about you, Clay. Like, of course I'm doing all these things.
I gave you some,
please,
I don't know.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
I do care.
I could have lied. I didn't have to tell you how I felt. I was trying. I was vulnerable.
And I came in here raw. I could have put on my little voice and just gave you what you needed, but I didn't have that. And so I'm sorry.
Which sounds pretty exasperated. She's apologizing, but it also kind of feels a bit like a self-serving apology. Like just, okay, I'm overwhelmed, okay? I'm sorry about everything. It doesn't feel very, hey, Clay, I'm sorry I did that. It doesn't feel very personal. But Clay has an even better response because he zooms out and says, you don't have to apologize.
AD, I'm here with you, I'm rocking with you.
I'm telling you, we're together. We're okay. I lost my cool a little bit, but I'm here with you.
I apologize if you think I came at you aggressive with this. I apologize that this really threw me off. At the end of the day, listen, I don't want you going to bed distraught. I'm rocking with you. Listen, I'm with you. I still want to make this work with you.
And that's awesome. He was able to recognize that, okay, she's upset. She's still worked up. I'm not worked up, even though I have my own needs right now that may not be getting met in this instance. I, Clay, am able to push that aside a little bit. I can push her in my own things and continue to reassure her, hey, AD, it's okay. You don't have to apologize. I'm sorry about that. I'm with you. We're together. We're cool. We're cool, AD. And although AD still seems like she's a bit in it all and not completely recovered,
I know.
I understand this process. I'm with you.
I think that was perfect from Clay's part. I think he did an amazing job. Yes, he did lose his cool, looked like he was triggered in the beginning, and it seemed like between the two of them, he was the one to start with the aggression. But then Clay was able to self-regulate, to say, hey, I'm recognizing I'm between left and right. I have my old way of thinking about things and doing. I don't want to do that. I want to be healthy. I want to be functional. I'm going this way. And then he was able to collect himself and be cool and support his partner AD in a way that I thought was great to see. And although it would be great if they had more of a fairy tale ending where she felt immediately reassured and the two of them left on a better note, I don't think that's super realistic all the time. And I think this went about as well as it could have, at least in the end. I was impressed with the recovery. You could hear all that and think, okay, great. What does it have to do with being Matthew's kryptonite? Okay, so Clay was a player and he's got his issues and tries to, what does this have to do with Matthew? Both Matthew and Clay are essentially saying that they are bad guys on the surface, but good guys deep down. If we change bad guy to just distance or have some kind of thick outer shell. Both of them are making that claim, and both of them are saying they're at the precipice where they are now trying to change from being a bad guy on the outside to being a good guy on the outside and being more in tune with themselves. But although we see that struggle between good guy, bad guy with Clay, he's very open about how he used to have these problems and he's still struggling it to this day. With that whole comment with like the body and the lips and stuff was an example of that. We actually see the struggle between good and bad with Clay. We don't see any of that struggle at all with Matthew. We just have to take his word for it that he was more of a distant guy, because now he's immediately on the good side, completely solved overnight when he's with AD. There's no struggle between the good and the bad, and that's what I commented on in my last video. He says these things are really hard for him, but overnight he's completely cured of all of his problems the second he's around AD. So not only is that a red flag of, was this not really difficult for you to have emotions this whole time? Are you just saying that was really difficult to sell that I've saved you? Did you not really have a tough shell to begin with and you're just pretending you do to manipulate me? Or did you used to have that thick outer shell and although you're saying you're connected and vulnerable now, you're not actually being vulnerable and you're still at that tough outer shell? Were you lying about having the problem to begin with? Or are you lying that you have solved it now? Which one is it? Because I'm not seeing any conflict between this outer shell and the emotional vulnerable. I'm not seeing this evolution and growth as a person. You're just selling an idea. Whereas with Clay, it's completely obvious to everybody that he is clearly struggling with this. He's in the middle of an evolutionary process. And therefore, it's much easier to believe and understand. We see the effort he's making. He's talking about having a problem. We see him struggling with the problem. We see him overcome some of the problem. There's effort. That's evidence. And that disparity is even further compounded when we look at this episode and we see Clay have this little blow up with AD, and he gets triggered but tries to collect himself and say that he's choosing the better path. And you compare that with how Matthew reacted on this episode. I know I didn't talk about the whole thing, but he essentially just gaslights AD, says that he never did anything wrong, and then tells her that the things that she heard didn't actually happen that way.
That's not true. What I said to you yesterday was not what I said to her today. Some of the things I said to you were much more deep than what I said to her. I did not say that to her. I wanted to leave with you yesterday. Do you think I said that to her?
He completely doubles down, takes no responsibility, while at the same time claiming that he's reformed it and he's this great guy and I love you so much. Don't you know that I love you, AD? You really think I told another girl the same stuff? You know how special our connection is? You really think I said all that to another girl? Just more of that bullshit. Even if Clay isn't completely reformed overnight and may not be the best partner right now in this moment, I still can't help but feel that he's the actual real-life adult version of the problem that Matthew is pretending to have being solved in real time. I can't help but wonder if Clay being an actual sheep in this situation is making it easier for AD to recognize Matthew as a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's why I say that Clay may be the kryptonite to Matthew's Superman. That's all I got for today's video. Let me know what you thought about either of these three in the comments down below. I am very interested to hear about their dynamic. I'm only on episode 2, so I guess I don't know everything that's going to turn out. But it's been super interesting so far. You can obviously tell by the length of this video that I really enjoyed talking about it. I hope you enjoyed hearing it. Thank you so much for all the success and attention you gave to my last video. It is now my second or third best video of all time on this channel. And if you watch this video as a fan of Love is Blind and you don't know the rest of my channel, I usually talk about 90 Day Fiancé, but even if you don't watch the show 90 Day Fiancé, I think you'd still find it interesting if you found this video interesting, so check out my channel. And lastly, I hope this new lav mic sounds okay. This new, I'm trying it out. I want to be able to do, some of this more while I film it and not be stuck with the stupid stationary camera or microphone. So hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought about this couple and these people in the comments down below. And until next time, if you enjoyed this video and enjoyed my content, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the join button, ring the bell for notifications, and every comment helps the algorithm. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.